Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, cha, bonjour, namaste, jumbo. Bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jed Lee. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reeville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted and so very honored that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in that mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show, telling your kids' teachers, their principal, their librarian, their youth minister, telling everybody about the show, and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Amazon Music, Podcast Addict, Audible, CastBox, Player FM. Wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find Reading with Your Kids. We have a really wonderful show for you today. First up, Michelle A. Barry and Samantha van Leer are here to celebrate their science fiction middle grade novels and just celebrate science fiction for middle grade kids in general. It's a really fascinating conversation. I had so much fun. Later in the show, we'll be meeting Bonnie Swinehart. She's here to celebrate the Benji series. The Daytime Began, beautiful new picture book by Mary Ellen Roberson. Available at maryellenroberson.com.
In the dawn of the world, when colors were born, a gentle voice whispered, let there be morn. From mountains to rivers and skies up so blue, the daytime began. Oh, what a beautiful view. With every beat of the heart, in the breeze of the land, nature was singing as life took a stand. Oh, the wonders, the colors, the creatures so bright, in the pages of a story that brings pure delight. With every turn of the leaves, can you feel the cheer? The daytime began, let's celebrate here.
Sick Days just got spectacular. In Charlotte and Penelope and the neighborhood stage, two sisters are stuck inside until their animal friends put on the show of the year. Meet a dolphin band leader, a tap-dancing rabbit, and the loudest geese you've ever heard. It's a rhyming, rollicking, read-along adventure your kids will absolutely love. You can find Charlotte and Penelope and the neighborhood stage by Teresa Argenbright wherever books are sold. Hey, my friends, I want you to meet Corky the Quirky Cow, the most musical cow you'll ever meet. Corky has a magical gift. She can mimic every animal on the farm. Pigs, ducks, chickens, you name it. Together with her friends, Corky creates a barnyard symphony so enchanting that Farmer Ken starts hosting concerts. Written by Lavelle Carlson, Corky the Quirky Cow is more than just a funny farm tale. It's a powerful tool for speech therapists, teachers, and parents to help build early language, articulation, and phonological skills. Through her fun-filled storybook adventures, Corky the Quirky Clown helps young readers boost their speech and language skills with laughter and learning. And guess what? She's offering a free downloadable book, Eek! I Hear a Squeak. It's perfect for parents, teachers, and speech therapists. You can get yours today at slpstorytellers.com. We are in for a treat today, my friends. Joining us first from the great state of Connecticut, Michelle Barry. She's the author of Plotting the Star series. Hey, Michelle, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Wonderful, wonderful. So excited to have you on the show. And also joining us from San Antonio in Texas, she's the author of The Extraterrestrial Zoo. Please welcome to the show, Samantha van Leer. Samantha, how are you?
I am great. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to have you both on. Both of you are writing middle grade science fiction. Am I right about that, Michelle?
Yes, that's correct.
And I loved science fiction when I was a kid. I really adored it. Star Trek, and I remember listening to replay. I wasn't around for the original War of the Worlds from Orson Welles, but I did hear a few years later, and was absolutely fascinated by it. But I think, Samantha, you were telling me that there aren't that many writers who are writing middle grade fiction, science fiction.
Yeah, it's definitely a space that I think is less occupied, which I personally find to be a shame because I think it's a huge market. I used to teach fourth grade, and I found that a lot of my students were just obsessed with the sci-fi genre. They'd come into school and they were talking about Stranger Things and the Alien movie series and these video games. And when I tried to find books in that middle grade reading level that matched this interest of theirs, I came up pretty short. There's a few, great authors out there creating material, but there's so much in adult and a pretty good amount in YA. But for those middle grade readers, that's just kind of an untapped area.
Yeah. Michelle, any hypotheses as to what, since we're talking about science fiction and throw around some big words, any idea why there may be this lack of science fiction for middle grade kids?
I don't know. And it's funny because I was talking with my son's elementary school librarian a couple weeks ago, and we had this exact same conversation. And she was saying how the kids just gobble up any science fiction that they have on the shelves, but there just isn't a lot of it, and she has trouble finding it. So I can definitely echo that. I don't know why it's true. I grew up loving science fiction. I read a lot of the Star Wars, Jedi Academy books as a kid, but there wasn't a lot back then that I knew of, and I think it's still a little bit lacking. So I'm glad we both can kind of contribute some books to the shelves for the kids that are looking for it.
Yeah, and Samantha, it's kind of neat that, you got this big market and there aren't many people competing with you.
Yeah, I think it's a space that, like Michelle was saying, librarians and teachers are always looking for because their kids come asking for it, and parents, I'm sure as well. I think it's something that the publishing world is a little afraid of because it's an untapped market. There isn't, the data to show necessarily in book sales that this is a great place to be, just because, like we're saying, it doesn't exist yet. But I think coming from the other side, from that teaching perspective, from the parent world, demand is there, and these teachers and librarians are wanting it. I know when I was at a few conferences, librarian conferences this year, I had so many people coming up just saying, "Thank you, somebody listened. This is what we've been looking for." And so I know, when I was sending out, or my agent was sending out the first draft of my book to potential publishers, one response that I even received from a publishing house that passed was, "Thanks, we don't do aliens." And that was kind of their explanation. It was too much of a risk. We know that fairies sell. We know that witches and wizards sell. We know that superheroes sell, but no one's ever tried this before. And so, it's this place that I think I have a prediction that sci-fi middle grade is the next boom. I think it's the next big place.
I support this. I hope you're right.
Yes.
Oh, Michelle, it makes, first off, it doesn't make sense that, publishers who want to sell books about fairies and dragons say, "Oh no, aliens is a step too far." That's bizarre. But you would think with all the big push for STEM and STEAM and all the interest that kids are showing in these fields, that's where my interest in the stars and aliens came from. It's this whole idea of wow, we can actually explore the stars. What are we going to find out there? Is this big, giant universe actually empty? Does that make sense? And if we meet somebody out there, what's that entity going to be like?
So true. I definitely can relate to that. I mean, as a kid, my first thing I ever wanted to be when I grew up was an astronaut, and I think that was like what started my love of science fiction and just the idea of being able to explore the stars. And my pathway took more of like a creative writing route than a science and math route, but so that's kind of where the idea for my books came from. I wanted to explore the stars still, and if I couldn't do it in real life, I wanted to do it through fiction. But one of the things I do talk about when I go visit students at schools is science fiction is aliens and spaceships and whatnot, and I love that aspect of science fiction, but it's so much more than that too. It's different technologies. Like I always use Back to the Future and Jurassic Park as examples of science fiction that kids don't realize they're liking science fiction when they like those movies. So science fiction is so much broader than that. So I feel like there is a space for almost everybody in that genre. Even if they might think they don't like science fiction, they might already like it and just not realize it.
Yeah. Well, we should talk about both of your book series. Why don't we start first with you, Samantha? The Extraterrestrial Zoo. What a neat title for a book and for a series.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very excited to be promoting this book. I was almost late to this meeting because I was just completely zoned in. I'm writing book 2 right now, and I was typing away and completely lost track of time. But yeah, so this is my latest series. It's set in a world much like our own, but it has this sort of sci-fi twist. For the past 16 years, twice a year, alien creatures have been sent to Earth in these little pods with nothing but a name tag. And the story is told through 13-year-old Ava's perspective. And she works at her family's zoo, where all of these alien creatures are kept and cared for. And through a series of unfortunate events, her parents are no longer with her. And she's left in the care of her Uncle Pete, who is very emotionally distant. He struggles from PTSD from his time in Iraq. And she really ends up running the zoo kind of by herself and taking care of all these creatures and studying them. And suddenly a hurricane hits Portland, Maine, where this is all set, and it releases the extraterrestrials into the woods of Maine. And it's up to her and their very newly hired and very helpless intern Harley to go and search through these woods to find the aliens and bring them back home to the zoo before someone else, someone a little less caring, finds them first. And it's filled with lots of adventure, government conspiracies, aliens, of course. But it's a very fun book. I was writing it really trying to think about what's a book I would want to read my students. And as a teacher, my favorite thing was in read alouds when you'd finish a chapter and the whole class would just go, no, and they just wanted to keep reading. So I tried to infuse my book with that level of adventure and excitement where every chapter kind of leaves you with a what's next kind of moment.
All right. You mentioned the uncle who's suffering from PTSD. I just wanted to take a minute to recognize you and your family, your military family, and I want to thank you for your service, your husband and your whole family service to our country. There's military families make huge sacrifices for the rest of us, and I want to make sure we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Michelle, Plotting the Stars, 3 books in the series. I love the titles: Moon Garden, Sea Garden, and Ash Garden. Ash Garden is that kind of sends, that get the spidey senses going when I hear that title.
That's great. I'm glad they're all resonating. I knew what the title would be of the first book, very, very early on in the drafting process. I still love it. And then the other 2 came later, and some more edits and back and forth with those, but I'm really happy with how they all rounded out.
So who are we going to meet in your series?
So Moon Garden, my little quick elevator pitch for it is Moon Garden is a retelling of The Secret Garden, but set at a boarding school on the moon with magic. And to kind of dig a little deeper into it, so in this world, humanity has left the Earth, which they call the Old World, because of pollution and whatnot. The Earth has become uninhabitable. So they've left for off-world settlements, and my main character Myra lives on the settlement on the moon. And in this world, people can develop a magic for the different STEM areas. So if you have a talent for math, you'll develop a number whispering magic. If you have a talent for chemistry, you would develop chemic magic, and so on. So my main character, Myra, is attending the school on the moon, and everyone presumes she's going to be a very talented number whisperer, just like her parents. And she has this secret that she doesn't believe that she has any magic. Until one day she discovers a garden that's hidden in her school. And at first she's terrified of it because in this world plants are considered dangerous and they're forbidden because of what happened on the Earth where all the plants and nature turned basically toxic to humanity. She soon discovers that the garden is safe and that she has a magic related to the plants. And so that kind of sets up some obstacles for her since plants are forbidden, and now she's discovered she does actually have magic, but it's a forbidden magic, and the story kind of just evolves from there.
I'm really curious. You're basically creating worlds, both of you, in your books. What techniques? How do you keep the physics of these worlds that you're creating straight? Why don't we start with you, Samantha?
Yeah, I think this was actually a question that I got recently when I was visiting a school. Someone said, how do you create something from scratch? What are some tips? And something that I did, because this is my introduction to the sci-fi world. My previous books were all more fantasy. And even with those books, I used the trick of setting it in the real world, because I know I'm going to be making up a lot when it comes to the characters, and for this series, the alien creatures, and so a lot of, what's going on in space coming to the world. To make it a little simpler for myself, I used our real world. I think it also helps readers who are new to the sci-fi realm. They can kind of ground themselves in the reality of our world. Ava's world, the main character, looks just like ours. So a lot of kids can pick up the book and say, hey, that's me. Hey, I've been to Maine. I know what it's like to live in the woods. I know what this experience is like. And then it makes this sci-fi twist and all of this new stuff a little bit more digestible. And that's why it's really like dipping your toe into sci-fi in this first book in the series. I will say the second book gets a lot more into that sci-fi realm, and I just kind of throw you, into the deep end. But for myself, just for keeping track, I knew that the base of the book, the environment around the characters, I could look outside my window and base it off of that. It's grounded in my reality. For the alien creatures and this sort of, pattern of them coming to Earth, I am throwing in a lot of timeline and make believe. And I find I have a journal for each book that I'm writing, and I have to write down like all the alien creatures descriptions and everything that I've said about them, so that if they pop back up again in the book, I know they're this color, they have this, special power, they eat this, they're this size, they come from this place, so that I know that I'm accurately describing them again, whether it's later in the first book or in book 2. It's been really helpful to have those journals, and just to keep that thread going. I think it's a lot of rereading as well, rereading your own work and saying, oh, that actually doesn't make sense because you said that this thing can only happen in this area and now it's going on over here. And so it's a lot of catching your own kind of errors as you're building this magical imaginary world.
Cool. And so Michelle, Samantha told us how she kind of grounds herself as aliens are coming to Earth. You have it a little bit different. You are off Earth and you're going out into the universe.
Yes, and I have to say, I love that idea of keeping the journals for the different characters and plot elements. I might have to steal that idea for another sci-fi book, so I can see that would be really helpful for staying organized, because there are so many moving pieces to kind of bringing in sci-fi elements. The way I kind of approached it with Moon Garden was by layering kind of the different world building elements. So I started small with Myra's school, and then kind of built out from there. What kind of technology do they need in order to actually live on the moon? And I don't know if you feel this way, Samantha, but I kind of appreciate writing middle grade, because I feel like you can take a lot more allowances and leeways with the science than you could with maybe writing adult science fiction, where it really has to be kind of buttoned up science theory. So I kind of did my own thing. I tried to kind of base it on technology that could be plausible, but then any gaps I just filled in with magic, and yeah, went from there. But from like the different technologies and what the worlds actually look like, then I can start to layer in, you know, the different food and culture and religion. I even sprinkled in a couple holidays, just to kind of make it feel real and grounded in the setting. But it's definitely a lot to keep track of. That's why I love that journal idea so much, just kind of keeping a log of everything. But for me, it's just kind of building things on top of each other. And then once I had the overall setting established and kind of the rules for how the technology worked in this world, then I had to kind of filter in the magical components and build the magical system. So that took a lot of kind of back and forth, and how would this fit in with the advanced technology I've kind of established with this setting? How does the magic come into play and still has value versus the technology? So that was challenging, but it was a lot of fun to kind of build out this kind of fictional world for the characters to play in.
You know, now since we're talking about science fiction, I had another guest on a few weeks, maybe a month or so back, Brady Smith, who's a author, illustrator, and Hollywood actor, and we started talking about everything that's in the news about UAPs, and you know, he said, "What do you think is going on with this?" You know, so I'm going to turn it on both of you, Samantha. What do you think is going on with all this talk about UAPs and drones, and are they drones or are they things from other planets? Where do you stand on this? And if it's a military secret, just feel free to tell me. You can't tell me.
Yes, or redacted. No, unfortunately, my husband works mostly in hospitals, and so he doesn't really, at least from what I've been told, he hasn't come across any alien creatures. But I think I'd be the first person that he goes to, considering my line of work is now in sci-fi. I think he'd probably come to me for questions. But I think I will say this, because and Michelle, I'm sure, you know, people ask you this as well, being in that kind of, I know you're not in the alien kind of genre of sci-fi, but you are in that space and dystopian kind of feel in your books. But I get the question a lot from schools is, are aliens real? Do you believe in aliens? And I'll say, you know what? Yeah, heck yeah, because how could we know? How could we also be so naive to say that we're the only living organisms, you know, who have a sort of civilization in this entire universe? If you go to a planetarium and you're sitting there in the little room with the screen over your head and they're just zooming out and out and out farther and farther away from Earth, you realize how teeny tiny we are. We are so insignificant. There's absolutely no way there isn't stuff beyond us. Whether they are interacting with us, I don't know if I was an alien, if I'd want to come to Earth. And I think it's slightly reflected in my stories. But yeah, I'm sure we've probably popped up on someone's radar. I think we are a relatively young planet and species, and there's way older stuff out there in space. So I'm sure somebody's noticed us before. I don't think we are technologically advanced enough to notice others yet. I'm sure we'll get there one day. I don't think it's something to fear. I think it's fun to kind of look into space and everything, but I truly believe, and this is what I'm in writing in book 2, I believe that a species out there looking at Earth, we just must be so crude to them. I think we look the way, you know, early humans look to us now, that we're just very animalistic and our tools are just so primitive. I don't think we're worth interacting with yet. And I think it's more of like a watching scenario. But I just can't say that something isn't real because we just can't know. We can't know till we until we get better.
What about you, Michelle? Where do you stand on this issue?
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I'm going to butcher this quote, and I can't remember the name of the movie right now, but there's an older sci-fi movie I used to watch a lot that I think the quote's something like, if we're really the only ones out there, it seems like an awful big waste of space. I just think there's so much unexplored galaxy and universe, obviously, that there's just no way to know. And my husband teases me that he says I have this like undying need to know everything, and it does bother me that I might not be around once like there is some kind of confirmation of that. I hope we get some sort of discovery in my lifetime. I think there's got to be something else out there. And I just hope I get to know that for sure someday, but we'll see.
It's interesting because both of you are meeting for the first time here on Reading with Your Kids. This has actually happened a few times, and it's really kind of neat. And I know you're both fans of each other's work, so why don't I throw it to you. Michelle, do you have a question you want to ask Samantha?
Yeah, so it's so funny because I haven't gotten to read. I have your book. I have not read it yet. It's on my summer reading list. But in reading the synopsis, my kids were on a big We Bought a Zoo kick last summer, that old Matt Damon movie, and it kind of has those vibes to it. So I just loved that about it, and I was just wondering where you got the idea to kind of do like the zoo aspect of it.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. I'm so excited. I hope that your kids enjoy it and it's a fun read. I'm trying to really push it for a summer read because I know that it's such a hard thing to get your kids to read through the summer. And I know everybody has a reading log because I handed those out as a teacher. And so I think the Extraterrestrial Zoo is just a really fun adventure read that, will just log something down and I think keep kids entertained. But the story of how this idea came to be, I was actually home back in college. This originally started as my thesis for college, and I was home one weekend and laying on the floor with our rescue dog, Alvin, who was just the most ugly little thing, and I loved him so dearly. And he had this perfect little spot on the top of his head, and I was pressing my thumb to it, and I said, Alvin, is this where the aliens plugged you into your pod when they sent you to Earth? And it was just such a silly, random comment that I had to my dog. And it sparked an idea of, what if there was someone like me who had all of these ridiculous looking creatures, these little aliens that they had to take care of? And what would you do? What would you do if you had, in my story, there's 32 aliens? How would you keep up with that? And I thought, it'd probably be like a zoo. You'd have to keep them in habitats because they would all come from different planets and places. So they'd all need their own environment. And you'd probably have to research them and study them. And that kind of built this foundation of, and an extraterrestrial zoo is where they'd probably all end up to be kept and researched and studied and like a, real zoo to show the world they're not something to fear, but something we can learn from. And so that really is what sparked it. It didn't begin with me wanting to write about a zoo. It was more of, here are all these creatures I've now imagined. Where do I put them? Where do they belong?
I love it.
I love that.
Samantha, do you have a question for Michelle?
So I did read Michelle's first book in the series and I absolutely adored it. Everybody who's listening, go and read it because it just hooked me. The kind of magical fantasy piece that you weave into sci-fi is something I've never seen. I've absolutely never seen it. And it kept me so engaged. And I thought you did such an incredible job because you built this brand new world where it has this this magical element of everyone almost like Harry Potter, being sorted into these different groups that their magical talent is in. But then that woven into a completely made up dystopian sci-fi world on, out in space that they're living. And I love too that you incorporate different, communities on different planets too. And it's so much make believe, and you've weaved it so elegantly together that for myself and for a young reader, it was easy to understand. And even though there's so much complexity to it and so much to the story, you've laid it out so clearly that you get to enjoy it. You're not left, because sometimes with sci-fi and stuff, it gets so beyond our reality that you're left wondering, what was that thing? Like, I know they mentioned it way back, but what does that tool do? Or what is this magic? And I didn't feel that at all. I knew exactly what was happening through the whole story and was just so hooked into it. And I have fallen in love with the world you've created. So I'm so excited to
hear that.
read
Thank
book
you so
2
much.
and book 3.
Oh, thank you.
I think my question for you is, why did you decide to incorporate magic into the sci-fi world? Why not just write about the dystopian, world post kind of, apocalyptic poisonous plants? What made you kind of decide to add in that extra element?
I think one piece of it was just, I just love magic in stories. That's like one of my favorite tropes, like especially magical boarding schools. That's like another one of my favorite tropes. But for me, it really kind of symbolized the different talents and skills that we all have, especially growing up. You might think like, I want to be this or that, but then maybe like you end up not liking it as much or not being as talented in that area as you might hope you would be, like me wanting to be an astronaut, but then, math was not my thing. So that didn't end up happening. But just kind of using that as symbolism for whatever talents that you do have, and everyone has their special gifts and talents. Like, that's important and that's valuable, and it might not always be what you expect, but it's what makes you special, and all of it has value. And then just kind of using that, like Myra, for example, everyone thinks she's going to have this number whispering power. Then she ends up not having it at all and really can't stand math. And then she develops her powers as a botany for plant magic. And she has a lot of trouble accepting that about herself in the beginning. I think that can be true a lot in life, especially as you're kind of moving through middle school and high school and you're starting to think about, how you want to spend your life and what kind of career you want to have. It might not always align with what you expect, and that's okay. So that was kind of the thought behind the magical systems, just kind of getting that onto the page, that kind of struggle of figuring out who you are when you're in that middle school up through high school age, and the magic just kind of easily kind of tied to that, I think. So that's kind of how it worked into the story.
Cool.
Very cool. I love this. Has been a surprisingly fun TV for me. I am very, very happy. We're going to have to thank Sarah for setting this up. Samantha, where can we go to find out more about the Extraterrestrial Zoo and find out more about you?
Yes, follow me on Instagram at Samantha van Leer. I have linked my website. You can book me for school visits and contact me that way. And follow me along Instagram. I will post on Blue Sky as well. Any updates about the book 2 in the series, and, at places that I'll be and conferences. I also have, the end of June, the audiobook of The Extraterrestrial Zoo, Finding the Lost One. That first book in the series comes out. So check that out. It's really great for if you've got a long car ride coming up this summer, be entertained by a little adventure story. But yeah, that's where you can track me.
Wonderful. When you do a school visit, do you bring any of the aliens with you?
Oh, I do. A big part of my talk is who inspired my alien creatures, and that involves a lot of pets in my life, and you get to see some photos, and I talk a lot about them. So in a way, I bring them along with me.
Awesome. Michelle, where can we go to find out more about Plotting the Stars and find out more about you?
So thanks again so much for having me. This has been such a fun chat. And if any listeners want to learn more about my books, I'm on Instagram and Blue Sky as well. I'm Michelle Berry Books, and my website is michelleberrybooks.com.
We've had a really fun time speaking to the authors of, first off, the author of The Extraterrestrial Zoo, Samantha van Leer, and the author of Plotting the Stars, Michelle A. Berry. Berry. We hear it over and over again. Michelle Berry. My friends, thank you so much for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
If you are a regular listener of Reading with Your Kids, you know how much I love Clowns Without Borders. Clownswithoutborders.org. I would love for you to visit that website and consider becoming a joy maker. Clowns Without Borders sends clowns to disaster areas, refugee camps, anywhere around the world that people really need to smile. Clowns Without Borders, we're there. Right now, my friend Josie May and 3 other amazing artists are entertaining kids who really need a smile in Zimbabwe. We would love for you to help them bring those smiles, make that happiness a reality by going to clownswithoutborders.org and consider becoming a joy maker. Your monthly gift can bring a smile to a kid who really needs it. clownswithoutborders.org. Are you looking for a creative way to bond with your kids? Let me tell you all about Drawing with Your Kids, the ultimate destination for artistic adventures. Join us as we dive into the wonderful world of children's books with renowned illustrators guiding you step by step. From beloved characters to whimsical scenes, unleash your imagination and create cherished memories together. Whether you're a seasoned artist or just picking up a pencil, there's something for everyone at Drawing with Your Kids. Please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and click on the Drawing with Your Kids link at the top of the page and let the creativity flow. Drawing with Your Kids, where every stroke brings stories to life. My friends, if you have ever thought about owning a business that's fun, rewarding, and makes a valuable contribution to kids' education, well, Brooklyn Robot Foundry is calling your name. I recently met Jenny Young. She's the founder of Brooklyn Robot Foundry. And let me tell you, she is incredible. Her passion for getting kids excited about STEAM, that's STEM plus art, it's contagious. I'm telling you. This isn't your average kids program. Brooklyn Robot Foundry is all about hands-on, screen-free STEAM fun. These kids get to build a different robot each class and take it home with them afterwards. Kids love it. Parents are raving about it. And now you can own a franchise and bring this incredible experience to families in your community. Now, this isn't your typical franchise. Brooklyn Robot Foundry is a mobile, flexible business with a deep curriculum that's making a real impact in schools and communities around the country. Franchise owners get a proven curriculum, full training, and support from a passionate team. So what are you waiting for? Please visit bit.ly/robotjed. That's bit.ly/robotjed. And let them know you heard about it on Reading with Your Kids. Join us right now from the great state of Pennsylvania. Our guest is here today to celebrate her middle grade series. It's called the Benji series. Please welcome to the show, Bonnie Swinehart. Hey, Bonnie, how are you?
I am good.
Glad to have you here. Tell us, who is this Benji guy?
Well, the character Benji was actually originally created on my father's image. His name was Bill. Of course, I'm sure when he was younger, they probably called him Billy, but I kind of just came up, the Benji just kind of came into my brain, but he was tailored after my dad.
Okay, cool. And so when does the story take place?
It takes place in the 1930s in Pennsylvania Dutch country. And the setting in the first book is mostly the one-room schoolhouse, but it's throughout all the books. And my father, who I said I named him after, went to a one-room schoolhouse in the 1930s. Actually, my mom did too, but my dad used to tell me about the pranks they pulled on their teacher. So when I was looking for an idea to start my book, that popped into my head. And so it's tailored a little bit after some of the pranks my dad told me. In fact, the first prank is in the book is the one that he told me about.
Are you able to tell us about the prank?
Well, I'd give a little bit away, but yeah, I can. I'm not going to give you total details, but of course, Benji is a big time prankster, and the first one that he did was that kids were and the teacher were getting ready to go out for recess. But earlier that morning, before school started, he snuck into her closet and pinned something fast to the back of her coat. I'm looking at. Should I tell you what it is? So anyway,
Sure. I won't tell anybody.
Okay. It's a pig's tail, a real pig's tail. So she goes out to recess and has her coat or sweater on, and this pigtail, she's walking around and it's just jiggling around. And of course, Benji's trying not to crack up, and she's on to him, and she knows something's going on, and he ends up in the corner with the dunce hat on.
Well, dunce cap. I missed that barely, and I think I would have put it a whole lot. Well, it sounds like a lot of fun. So in the Benji series, I understand there's 3 books in the series.
Yes.
So it's Benji and the Belsnickel. What's a Belsnickel?
The Belsnickel is the story of the Belsnickel originated in the southern part of Germany and came over with the Pennsylvania Dutch people. And he's like the opposite of Santa Claus. Now, I always emphasize to the kids that he does not hurt the kids. He's there to put a scare into them so that they rethink some of their behavior and not do some of the things that they do. So Benji throughout the book is always in trouble and is getting from different people that he might get a visit from the Belsnickel, which at first he's like, yeah, that's not really real. But the closer it gets to Christmas, he's like, oh, maybe I am going to get a visit. I don't want one.
I love that. What a tradition. Boy, it's like, well, we got Santa Claus, and for all you who aren't doing well, forget about the coal. We're going to send the Belsnickel to get you.
Exactly. And he's all dressed in black fur, and he has a hat, and that it jingles in the night. All you can hear in the night is, if you're expecting a visit, is the sound of those bells ringing, which is kind of eerie when it's in the middle of the night or late at night.
Yeah. Boy, I can imagine how terrified some kids would be, especially if they had, if they knew that they were a little rambunctious and mischievous, being alone in the 1930s in their dark room. That would be pretty terrifying.
Yeah, he was pretty scared.
I bet. Now, another title in the series is Benji and the County Fair.
Yep. Okay, that one was, I didn't really even know there was going to be a second book. I mean, that kind of just came because the first book did so well. So in my writer's script, I'm like, I don't even know what to write about in the second book. And of course, they were going around giving me ideas. And one of the ladies said, how about goats? They're funny. They're silly. And I thought, the more I thought about it, yeah, I think I could do this. And also, the county fair was something I was used to because I grew up in the area where there's a lot of county fairs, and it's all the animals. And so that's a very hilarious book. Benji's dad surprises him with 3 really ornery goats and says, it's your job, Benji. You got to take care of them. He doesn't know anything about goats. And believe me, they give him a terrible time, from climbing on things and eating things, and just, they actually have something to do with an automobile as well. But I can't tell you that one.
Okay. Boy, growing up in the city, I really had no idea what a county fair was until I started performing. And I performed at one probably an hour or 2 away from you, the Green Community Fair, something like that, up by Du Bois. Du Bois, sorry. Mm-hmm. And I remember they had the absolute most delicious piece of corn I've ever tasted. They probably just plucked it right off the stalk and threw it in a pot of butter.
Yeah.
And I ate it, and boy, I was in heaven.
I actually do 2 county fairs usually every year with my books, and really do pretty well. And so I'm used to seeing that environment, but I also grew up in it, and the food is, usually all pretty much homemade, and it's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the third book in the series is called Benji and the Paper Route Mystery. I was a paper boy. I had a paper route back in the day. I'm imagining the mischief that Benji could get into on his paper route.
Well, when I came to the third book, I just decided I wanted to challenge myself to do something totally different. So I know mysteries are very popular, and the age level of the kids was getting up a little bit more. And I thought this is a good time. So I don't even know where I'm not really sure where I got the idea. It just came to me. And so, yeah, he starts on this paper route, and, he comes upon this mysterious house, which is all dark inside. There's never any light on. The blinds are down, the door, people don't even answer the door. He goes for his paper route money, and they slip it under the door in an envelope. They won't, I mean, it's like very mysterious, and there's a very mean dog there as well. And just a lot of strange things keep happening, and then things start disappearing, and boxes are on the porch, and he sees like little words on them or things that are kind of sticking out. And he starts trying to put all these clues together to figure out why these things are going missing.
You know, as we're talking here, I'm imagining the Benji series. It would be a really fun book to read together or co-read with your middle grade age kids, just to talk about a really different time.
Yeah. I have a lot of parents have told me that they use them for read aloud books, and they like do a chapter at a time. And yeah, it's a real good book for that.
Yeah. And, you know, we're talking about a time that's not all that long ago, where it's under 100 years or so. And there are probably still people around that lived in that time.
My husband and I, where we live right now, we're right in almost all of our neighbors are Amish Mennonite. So yeah, we're really in the midst of it here.
Yeah, neat. Now, you and I were chatting about a book your first picture book that's coming out in the not too distant future. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, you know my ties to Ecuador. So Ecuador, have you been to Ecuador?
I have not been to Ecuador. We had a wonderful intern working here on the podcast, Stephanie Davila. And I'm happy to say, just this past weekend, Stephanie graduated from Harvard with a master's degree. Stephanie didn't appear live on Reading with the English version of Reading with Your Kids. Instead, she created a series of 5 episodes in Spanish, talking to authors from Latin America.
Oh, that's great. Well, yeah, I mean, I've been there, and it's a beautiful country. I mean, there's a lot of poverty, which is common in that part of the world, unfortunately. But the beauty of it is just like with the mountains and the volcanoes, and it's just, and I love going to the markets because they're so colorful. Everything, and even in the homes, everything is colorful. So that's the thing that I really wanted to capture. Well, one of the things with my illustrator, I wanted somebody who was going to capture that essence of Ecuador, and she did. But my one son from Ecuador, who I'm very close with, he told me about this special soup, which is called finesca, that they eat and prepare only at Easter time. And I was kind of fascinated with it, so I started doing some research on it. And I thought this would really make a good children's story. And so the little girl in the book, she gets to make finesca for the very first time. And she goes to the markets and helps pick out the ingredients. And there's a lot of side trips as well. And then they come back and they start to prepare the finesca. In the meantime, she gets something at the market that she discovers is lost when she gets home. And she's very upset about it. It has a lot to do with the story itself. And so, through this whole time, she's like praying and crying because she's missing this, and she really wants to find it because for her, it's like really important to the holiday, the special day. So, should I keep going?
Well, I'm curious, what kind of soup is it?
It's called finesca. That's the name of it, Fanesca. And it has, the main ingredient, one of the main ingredients is salted cod. And then that's soaked in lemon and then broken to pieces. And then all kinds of like, squash, pumpkin, different kinds of beans, corn, cabbage. I can't think of everything. The recipe is actually in the back of the book.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. So, all the family, I mean, this is a big family thing. All of the family, like the brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles, they all come and help get involved in making the finesca, because they all have little parts, and their part, the little girl and her siblings, their part is, to chop up the vegetables, which she was never allowed to do before because of the danger of chopping her finger, I guess. At the very end of the story, of course, they all come together, but I would give the ending away if I told you exactly what happened.
We don't want to give any spoiler alerts out there. Bonnie, let me tell you, I have a story. We have family in beautiful island of Puerto Rico, and my wife's cousin knows that I love sopa de pollo, which is a chicken soup, chicken stew. Delicious, delicious. The last time we went down there, my daughter, her fiance, my wife, and I were all there, and we went over to visit her house, and I could smell it as soon as I walked in, and my cousin Ani came over and gave me a big hug, and she said, "Jed, I have some sopa de pollo on the stove for you. You're going to love it." And we sat down, and everybody is excited to eat it. And there's a bowl in front of me, and she comes up and she serves me this sopa de pollo that was absolutely delicious. And then she serves something else to everybody else. I had no idea.
You should feel very special.
I absolutely did. She always makes me feel extra special. I love her.
They do. I mean, they're just the warmest, most welcoming people. I mean, they were so good to us. Both times we were there, they were just so good to us.
Yeah, that's one. Now, you mentioned that you and I were speaking before we hit record that you have also hosted international kids in your home, as we have, and you hosted some kids from Ecuador. And just like us, you were telling us that your kids became your kids and became part of your family.
They did. And, I mean, the first student that we had, my son was a junior, the oldest one. I think the youngest one was like 8th grade, but anyway, I cried like crazy when he left. I mean, if I would have known how hard it was going to be to say goodbye, we had already arranged to have another student for the next year. And I often said, if I would have known how hard it was to say goodbye, I don't know if I would have done it, but I kept doing it anyway, because it's just a really neat experience. I've always wanted to know about other cultures and how they lived and, everything about it. So for me, it was part of my chance to live without going everywhere, seeing other areas.
Mm-hmm. And then you had a chance to go and visit after all.
Yeah. And our boys were there, like I said, once. And then our oldest son, he went by himself twice.
Oh, wonderful. That's fantastic. Now, we didn't tell the listeners the name of the new picture book.
It's Gioconda's, and that is our first student's mother's name. So I wanted to get that in there. Gioconda's Finesca Feast. And the grandmother is the main character, and Gioconda, and then the uncle. And the uncle is called Uncle Julio. And Julio was our second son from Ecuador. I wanted to make sure I got those in there.
Great. That's super. And when will that picture book be available?
It should be available soon. They were going to put it out, and then when I saw the author copy, there were some things that I just wasn't happy with, so they're now working on redoing that. So super. I'm hoping soon.
Awesome. Well, we should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about the Benji series and find out more about you.
Okay, well, I do have a website that my son, he actually keeps it up for me, but he's told me the other day that when I was in trying to do some things, I messed some stuff up. So, but anyway, it's author.bonnieswinehart.com. Yeah, I'm not the greatest at technology anymore, but
well, I don't think anybody is great at everything. So it's wonderful that you have that. This is a family adventure.
It is, yes.
We've had a great time speaking to the author of the Benji series, a great middle grade series from our guest, Bonnie Swinehart. Hey, Bonnie, thanks for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you having me.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids. Well, join us for the next exciting episode of the show. In the meantime, we'd love for you to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/Reading with Your Kids, at Reading with Your Kids on Instagram, at Jedly Magic on X. We have a great YouTube channel, youtube.com/Reading with Your Kids. You'd think that I know this by now. And our website, of course, it's readingwithyourkids.com. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guests, Michelle A. Barry and Samantha Van Leer. Please be sure to check out Michelle's Plotting the Stars series. And please be sure to check out Samantha's Extraterrestrial Zoo series. Also want to thank Bonnie Swinehart. Please check out the Benji series. I want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady, Stella Sheree, Dante Greco. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.